Today we are having some 4 or 3 aspects, mainly 4 aspects, that we want to look at from this passage that I was allocated. And the first part continues from verses 15 of Exodus chapter 16, verse 15 up to verse 20. And that was talking about the raining of the manna. You know, when the people complained about hunger, you know, they were complainers. They complained about water, they complained about this, and now this time they have complained about food. And the first thing that God does, of course, He rains quails, and they come and the people are, you know, they eat enough. And from there on, then He starts providing for 40 years the manna, which is going to be a matter of discussion even for now. So the first thing that we want to look at is the need for us to be prudent and to be diligent when we are assigned a task to do. And that is coming from verse 21. And then from there on, we are going to look at the institution of the Sabbath decree. And thereafter, we'll look at the vindication of that decree by Moses. And that is coming from verses 24 to 27. And then verse 28 to 30 is something that is very, very important for the Israelites and for us, and is giving the rules regarding the preparation for that very important day of the observance of the Sabbath. And so we begin from verse 21 as a backup to the passage that comes before and an introduction to the passage that follows. And I'm very grateful that this 21 was added to it. And so when we look at the first part, which is verse 21 of Exodus, one of the most important things that we see there pertains to the fact that each man was required to go out every day to go and collect and gather the manna for himself and for his family. Every day. And that had to be done every morning. So let me read the passage of Scripture. From chapter 16, and we begin from verse 21, the Bible begins by stating, morning by morning, they gathered it, each as much as he could eat. But when the sun grew hot, it melted. Verse 22, on the 6th day, they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers each. And when all the leaders of the congregation came and told Moses, he said to them, this is what the Lord has commanded. That's verse 23. Tomorrow is a day of solemn rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. Bake what you will bake, and boil what you boil, and all that is left over lay aside, to be kept till the morning. Verse 24. So they laid it aside till morning, as Moses commanded them. And it did not stink, and there were no worms in it. Verse 25, Moses said, eat it today, for today is a Sabbath to the Lord. Today you will not find it in the field. 6 days you shall gather it. But on the 7th day, which is a Sabbath, there will be none. Verse 27. On the 7th day, some of the people went out to gather, but they found none. And the Lord said to Moses, how long will you refuse to keep my commandments and my laws? Verse 29, see, the Lord has given you the Sabbath. Therefore, on the 6th day, he gives you bread for 2 days. Remain each of you in his place. let no one go out of his place on the seventh day. So verse 30 says, so the people rested on the seventh day. So you could see, and you can see, what was happening during that time. And I was asking myself, suppose any one of these men didn't go out every day to collect the manna, would he have lived? The answer is obviously no. And his family would also have perished with hunger. But even on that day, if he said, I'm going to go and collect and gather the manna, but he left to go and collect the manna at 10 or 11, would he find it? He wouldn't, because it would have melted. And so we find, as we read verse 21, that this is something very crucial and is teaching us something about what God taught us from the beginning in Genesis chapter 2, when he said man must work out. He must be in the field. He was given the field to work it out and take care of it. Labor came at the beginning, even before the curse, even before the fall of man. Every man is required to work. No one is to be idle. Everyone is required, and we are told here that each and every one of them, morning by morning, they gathered it, each as much as he could eat. But when the sun grew hot, it melted. Every one of them had to go out. No one was exempt from work, but each one had to go out. And at the right time. You don't wake up to go to work at 10 hours and you think you give out the best of yourself. You go out to work the earliest you can ever do. Very early in the morning. 4, 5, 6, by 7, you would have gathered everything. After that, you would have lost everything. I remember one time I went to Malawi in 2001. We went for the International Crusade. And there, I looked at the watch. People were talking outside. And I said, this is 4 o'clock. And the people are awake. Yes, they were awake. And the Malawians are hard workers. 4 a.m., they were on the streets working. By the time it was 6, they had done maybe lots of work. By the time I was waking up, they were done. Everything was over. The food was ready, the water was ready, everything was ready. Not only in Zomba, but also in Salima. It was the same kind of habit. And this you don't see much here. But you see it there. Because people know what it takes in order to have bread, in order to have food. You have to go early in the morning. One of the things, Doctor, you mentioned was that I was in Serenge. Did you mention that? Yeah, you forgot that. I stayed there for 2 years. I was a member of Musonda Baptist Church. For me to survive with my family, we had to work on the land. And if I never woke up at 4:30, then I would be losing out. Because I had to be 4:30, I had to be awake. By 5, I must be tying my cattle, my oxen, being ready to go into the field. So that by 5:30, these animals...